Welcome to FinTech 15, where we get straight into the insights and the personal journeys of the leaders who are actually shaping the future of FinTech and financial technology and financial services. Today, I'm joined by Jonny Fry, who is the CEO at Team Blockchain Limited. He is also the editor of Daily Bytes, and he's the Crypto AM Influencer of the year 2022. So we're very appreciative of the fact that he was able to make time. Thank you for being here, Jonny.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you. In the next 15 minutes, we're going to extract Jonny's insights and his hard-earned lessons from his personal journey. Let's jump straight in. Jonny, my first question to you is, when you talk about the future of money, what is the biggest disruption that we can expect to see in the future?
I think the biggest disruption is that we're going to see alternative ways to make money. And we're going to finally see the ability to have delivery versus payment when it comes to financial services. This is a very common activity when you go and buy a coffee. You don't go into a coffee shop and say, I tell you what, can I pay at the end of the month? Or I'll pay you in 2 days' time. You have to actually deliver, get a coffee. And funny enough, you have to do payment. But if you come into the securities world, you're buying and selling stocks and shares, bonds, then when I first started in the market, it was settlement of T plus 10. So you had 10 working days before you had to pay. That now has come down typically to T3, T2, T1, and now that they're trying to strive to getting same day settlement. And this is really important because it means less capital is being tied up in the markets. It makes things a lot more efficient. And this will also lead to the development of machine-to-machine payments and programmable money, which again is really important because if you look at going back to the securities market, between 60 and 75% of all the trades carried out on regulated exchanges are carried out by algorithms, by bots. And we're going to see you'll be able to go and buy a pair of Meta glasses. They're doing in conjunction with Oakley sunglasses, all in conjunction with Luxottica, the fantastically successful Italian company. Now, what's that got to do with FinTech? Well, you'll be able to wear your glasses and you'll be browsing online, or maybe you're in a shop and you'll be able to look at them and say, can you compare those shoes? Can you compare that jacket? Can you compare that new phone? Where can I get that? And you say, okay, you can double blink or you can do whatever it is. And that will execute to go and do that payment and do that transaction. This is where we're moving towards. Or you want to go to holiday to Paris and you want to take your partner to Paris and you want to have a budget of €3,500 and you want to go first class, second class, whatever it may be, stay in a 4 or 5-star hotel. It'll come up with all the different options. You want to insure your car, your house. All of these things take an incredible amount of time. But more importantly, as we start to see, if you like, cross-border payments coming into businesses, because people are very, very obsessed with big companies. But there are only 58,000 publicly quoted companies in the whole world. Right. 38,000 of those in Asia. So we've only got 20,000 compared to 400 million small to medium enterprises. So 60% of people in the UK, in Europe and America work for a small to medium, an SME. And it's those companies where they'll be able to make automatic payments faster and cheaper. They can carry on writing checks and sending money and using postal orders and all that good old stuff if they want to, but give people the choice. That's all this is about. And that's where there's some huge changes going, because every business has to receive and has to make payments. And that's why I wanted to start off with this and talk about the tremendous importance of payments.
Yeah, no, that's good, Jonny. And the next question is, in terms of the behavior that organizations have or the consumers have towards money, how do you predict that might change with the way the payments are going to change in the future?
Well, you're going to have a lot more transparency. So you're not going to be phoning up your bank and say, where's my money? You'll be able to track and trace it, or you'll know that your money is going to be transferred. So take a very simple example of, I don't know, a ship. A ship has arrived on a Sunday morning at the docks in wherever, in Rotterdam. And a little IoT device within the container of the ship will say, the ship has now arrived. So now what we need to do is we need to do three things. We need to pay the ship owner because they've transported the goods for us. We need to pay the excise duties, either taxes to land in Holland, and we need to pay the harbour. Now, all three of those payments will be made. It won't be a matter of, oh, someone turns up on Monday morning at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Oh, I've got to do all that flipping paperwork. Where's the money? Who's got the money? What's going on? All of this will increase efficiency. So this is really going to impact not so much you and I buying that cup of coffee, because we're very fortunate, especially in the UK, that actually we got faster payments. The Bank of England done a tremendous job in sorting out the retail. The challenges lie in that cross-border. But how does that affect you and I? It means things can be cheaper. It means you can have more certainty and therefore more efficiency. And that will lead to, hopefully, lower prices because the people using this automated payments will be able to undercut some of the competition.
Right. And what sort of part is blockchain and cryptocurrencies playing in this, in the way the payments are going to happen across the different borders?
Well, I think there's two answers to that question. One answer is absolutely nothing,
Right.
because if banks could comply with ISO 2022, and instead of sending bits of information like that, could send bits of information like that, like much richer data, if banks could actually have payments triggered by that IoT device, if banks could actually interact with AI agents and take those instructions, then we don't need blockchain, arguably.
Right.
However, we're seeing that banks are struggling because of their silos that they work in, and because a lot of the banks have been around for hundreds of years. And the traditional banks are really, really struggling. The challenger banks, and probably the greatest example of that is the Brazilian bank, Bank, which is 8 years old, got 110 million customers, just
Right.
located its legal headquarters here in London. But London's very, 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 very fortunate here in the UK. And London's got 180 different banks. And a lot of these challenger banks are digitally native. They're able to accept these instructions. But if you can't do that, then the alternative is to look at blockchain powered digital money. So you've got central bank digital currencies, you've got tokenized deposits, and you've got stable coins. And stable coins at the moment turning over about $1 trillion a month. So
Right.
there's a lot of people already have cottoned on to. And indeed, we've just recently seen Western Union, we've got Airbnb, we've got Wells Fargo, we've got Stripe, we've got PayPal, we've got Ernst & Young, we've got Meta, Facebook. All these companies are looking at using or launching Amazon, Apple, all of them, Walmart, all of them looking to use or launch their own stable coins because
Right.
they believe it's faster and cheaper and more
Yeah.
efficient, more transparent, and actually less risk potentially.
Right. So, Johnny, do you believe that Bitcoin is the digital gold and is the best way for people to hedge against inflation or economic uncertainty?
No.
Right. Can you expand on that, please?
Look, I've been involved in investment markets for a number of years. And I remember reading with interest a research paper from the London School of Economics by Professor Dimpson, who basically laid out the case why everyone ought to invest in smaller companies. But most people don't. Most institutions do not buy smaller companies. They buy funds that invest in small companies. And so with my having run a fund management business for nearly 20 years and floated on the London Stock Exchange, I'm a very passionate believer that you should be exposed to smaller companies, but buy a fund, leave it to the professionals. Otherwise, you're just having a gamble, having a punt. There's some fantastic companies on Aquis. There's some fantastic companies on AIM. There's some great companies that comprise the Russell 2000, but you're better off leaving it to a specialist and allocate, I don't know, 2, 3, 5% of your money to a specialist or a couple of specialists to look after it. And I look at cryptocurrencies in a very, very similar way.
Right.
They are under researched, they're not liquid, and they're very volatile. So sure, if you want to literally throw a dart at the board and pick one of those 22,000 cryptos, then yeah, why not? But isn't it better to leave it in the hands of experts who are managing this money 24/7 and give you some exposure to that sector with some professionals? And for me, that seems to make a lot more sense. To try and predict which one's going to up or down, well, who knows that? But to have no exposure, I think that's I think you could regret it in the next 5 years.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Johnny. Let's move on to the second part, which is more about your own personal journey and the lessons you've learned along the way. So everybody talks about success, but I want to know more about the failure. So what was the most significant failure that you've had along the journey, and what lesson did you learn from it about the power of perseverance?
Most significant failure, I'd say, when I started in business, I earned £500 in the first 6 months.
Right.
So that was a financial failure.
Hmm.
But by persevering and keeping going, in the next 6 months, I earned £35,000. Now, I know £35,000 doesn't sound a lot today, but in
Hmm.
1986, that was quite a lot of money. That's quite a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
so I would say that's why I use the word perseverance. And it's like if you're looking for a relationship, if you're looking for a job, the more no's, the closer you are to a yes.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
just have confidence and faith in what you're doing, not blind confidence, but if you keep going and if you keep telling the truth long enough, you eventually get caught. A lot of people get swayed into perhaps telling porcupines, telling fibs, misrepresentations. You've got to be a very, very clever person to remember all the fibs that you've told. But you haven't got to be that smart if you only have one version of the truth and you always tell the truth. So just make
Hmm.
sure, just as I say, the more you tell the truth, the sooner you're going to get caught and people realize that you're a person of your word. And ultimately, your personal reputation is what you build your career on.
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice, Johnny. Thank you for that. The next question is, what is the most important leadership lesson that you have learned along your journey?
Um, I would say rather than a lesson, I'd say one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest criticisms is the word communication. No matter
Right.
whether you run a small company or a big company, people always say, "But I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me?" And talk to your peers, talk to your staff. And sometimes you don't have the answer. Tell them. None of
Hmm.
us are perfect, particularly in this area of technology and digital assets. I hear a lot of people who claim they are experts. Well, since 2017, I've probably spent 15 hours a week writing this weekly publication called Digital Bytes,
Yeah.
which looks at who, how, where, and why blockchain and digital assets are being used. And Tyler, that's how you came across me,
Hmm.
because
True.
you'd seen it and thought it made some sense. And this isn't, we're not trying to sell anything. We're just trying to say PayPal are now doing a stable coin in conjunction with SAP, Google, and EY. What does that mean? Who are they
Hmm.
competing against? What can we learn from this? And
Yeah.
I would say that persistency and keeping to your truth is so important. So that whole communication thing is really, really important, that you actually make sure that you involve people. Don't put yourself up as an expert, because as I say, even doing 15 hours a week for nearly 9 years, I don't think I'm an expert because I'm learning
Hmm.
something every single day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for people who are watching, please make sure you go and check out Digital Bytes. The link will be down below in the description. You'll learn lots of amazing things from Digital Bytes. Okay, so question for you, Johnny, is in terms of the getting a glimpse of the future, history giving you a glimpse of the future. So was there ever a time in your journey where you got a glimpse of the future by looking at the history?
Yeah, I think if you look at the current situation with stable coins, at one level you say, well, why do we need another stable coin? We've got a couple of stable coins that between them have got by far, got about 70-80% market share with Tether and Circle. What can you do that's better or different than these stable coins? And according to Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury in the USA, he reckons we could see as much as 3 trillion. So that's a tenfold increase in where we are now. So you can
Wow.
see why lots of people are jumping in and think, yeah, but we've got two, that's fine. But go
Hmm.
back to history. And if we look in history and we find back in 1863, there were 8,000 issuers of dollars.
Mm.
Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that we're going to see 8,000, but we will see many, many more stable coins being issued by global brands and by governments, I believe, over the next few years. So history is a very powerful lesson in the same way we were just talking about smaller companies. The lessons of smaller companies, I think we can apply certainly to what's happening with cryptocurrencies. The lessons that we see in terms of good, effective global distribution. Well, that's why the FANGs, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, etc., they've been tremendously successful because they've had fantastic global distribution. So now let's drill it back to the crypto market and let's look at meme coins. Now, on the face of it, these are just crazy images. There's nothing to them.
No.
But somehow they managed to capture 10, 20, 30 million people. 30 million people are engaging and looking at them. Now, imagine if you could embed some real value, something really attractive in a meme coin, and then get to that global distribution so we can learn. And that's what we have to always be curious. Don't say no because you don't understand. Try and understand what's going on and then decide whether it's relevant for what your business or your personal life.
That's amazing advice. Always be curious. I love that. So, Jonny, just to start to wrap up now, what advice do you have for people who are aspiring, fintech leaders or who are fintech professionals and want to kind of move into a leadership role, or possibly even people like me who are looking at a career change and want to kind of move into fintech? So, what advice would you share with them?
Tallal, do exactly what you did. What did you do? You
I networked.
contacted me,
Yeah.
you networked, and you said, can you help?
Yeah.
You'll be amazed the number of people that actually respond and say, can you help me? Can you just spare 10 minutes of my time? Because we've all been in that situation. We've all needed a bit of help. And it's amazing if you just say to people, please, can you help? And make sure afterwards you say thank you.
Yeah.
And I suppose the thing that my dad always told me, you have two of these,
And
one of those.
yeah.
Use them in that order. You know what you know. You don't know what the other man knows.
Yes.
So I've been guilty of that today. You've asked me lots of questions. I've asked you no questions. So I suppose I have a closing question. What interests you in fintech, Tallal? Because you've just started out with a new business. Why are you so interested in fintech?
I got excited by fintech because it's something that is really, I believe, going to revolutionize the way the businesses operate. It's going to have a huge impact on how even normal day-to-day people look at their money, deal with the money, and that's something that really energizes me. That's something really excites me, and I really wanted to be a part of it. Now, obviously, I didn't really know exactly where to start. But because I'm actually an education leader, that's my background. My background is in education leadership. But I know that I have lots of transferable experience. I have lots of transferable skills that I can actually take over to the fintech sector. So therefore, my main goal was to actually, add some value. That's the place I started with. My goal was just to add value. I wasn't going to go and start looking for, calling people and looking for a job. Give me a job, give me an opportunity, anything like that. Here's my CV. I decided I'm going to try and add value. And how can I add value the most? Well, I can add value by bringing the most influential people, the people who are really at the cutting edge of fintech, and share their insights, share their personal journeys with everybody else, which is something unique. There's nothing else really out there like it, because everything else just focuses on the news regarding fintech. But very few things are out there that dig a little bit deeper. And that's what I want to do. I wanted to just add value. So that's what I'm doing with this FinTech 15. This show is all about just adding value to people, both the leaders, but also the people who are professionals in fintech, aspiring leaders in fintech, people who are like me, who are looking at career change, or anybody else who's just interested in the fintech space.
Well, and Tal, I think that's really that's a great reason, and I think that what you're doing, you're giving something out, you're helping other people, and you'll be amazed what comes back. You haven't gone and said, "Give me a job." What you've done is said, I've got an idea. I will meet some interesting people along the way. I'm not sure where this journey is going to take me, but I want to try and help some other people. And you'll be amazed by it's like everything at Christmas.
Mm.
It's always nice to give a present rather than receive it.
Yeah.
And you're giving and you'll get something back. And others should try and remember that. Don't always look what's in it for me.
Mm.
What can I do to help someone else? And you'll be amazed what you get back. Because
Yeah.
particularly in the digital asset space, I've found it's not all about me.
Mm.
It's about how can I help? What can we do together? Do 2 + 2 = 6? Whereas in the old world, in the 80s, 90s, and the noughties, it's all about me. It's loads of money. It's I've got the biggest car, the biggest house, the best partner, whatever it may well be. That's all. It has changed massively.
Yeah.
And that's what I find fascinating in this new environment. It's a much more collaborative, much more engaged community, which I think that's better for all of us and better for society as a whole. But Tal, thank you very much for your time today, and been great talking to you. And I'll look with interest how FinTech 15, how it evolves over the next few years.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonny. Where can people go to actually find you?
Oh, Belmarsh Prison. Oh no, sorry. You can get me on LinkedIn. Just JONNYFRY, Jonny Fry, and I'm there on LinkedIn. Pretty active there and happy to sort of help you. And if you'd like to read Digital Bytes, it comes out every week. You can find details there, and that's looking at who, how, where, and why blockchain and digital assets are being used. No adverts, no recommendations, just thought-provoking analysis, and be great to have you part of our community.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jonny. Everybody who's watching, this was FinTech 15. Watch out for the next episodes. The links are going to be in the description for Jonny's LinkedIn profile, as well as the link to Digital Assets blog. Okay. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.